David Rosen having made available his wonderful terrace overlooking the old city, and we will have a small representative group of Jews, Christians, and Muslims who will be there for us on behalf of us, and we'll be having therefore live on the ground in Jerusalem prayer, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, following the session of Coronaspection and the more reflective elements. Today we have a nice group of people on Zoom and probably thrice or 4 times as many people who've been watching us regularly on the Facebook Live. The topic for today is houses of worship. We're at a point where we're moving in COVID-19 past the lockdown phase to the reopening phase, and it's a time to reflect on what do houses of worship mean for us. What do they mean in our religious traditions? What did it mean and what hardship did it present for us when they closed down? What does it mean for us when they reopen? And what lessons do we have to take from the whole curve? I think that's the COVIDic word. The whole curve of moving from open to close to open again. How do we re-enter them with what spiritual orientation, and how does that spiritual reorientation express itself across the different religions? So we have 3 speakers today. I just mentioned our host, at least the host of some of us who are on the balcony, David Rosen, who will be the Jewish speaker. On my screen, just to the right of him, is Mayor Reis Habito from Dallas. So we've got here 8 time zones, and she will be offering a Buddhist perspective because the Praying Together part in Jerusalem has prayers from 3 traditions. The Maria will be offering a Buddhist meditation or prayer at the end of her presentation. And we have Swami Amarananda, who is with us from Geneva. Swamiji, are you there? Because my screen doesn't show you. He's here. So I just want to begin, as it's a time of both learning and prayer, by acknowledging the efforts that Swamiji is making. A member of Ramakrishna Mission, many years an affiliate of Elijah's. And he's been going through a lot of pain over the last 2 months with sciatica. I hope I'm not spilling a private secret, which means his prayer and teachings are particularly efficacious because they are enhanced by the power of pain that he's undergoing. And notwithstanding that, he has been a regular to these Coronaspection sessions, and he has agreed to make a contribution. I propose we begin with Swamiji, Age Before Beauty, or Hinduism before Buddhism chronologically, or any other reason you would like to offer. We begin with Swamiji, we move on to Maria, and we conclude with David, who will serve as a bridge between the 2 parts of the program. So Swamiji, I hand over the virtual microphone to you. I ask you to make a contribution on COVID-19 and what it looks like from a Hindu perspective in terms of the meaning of sacred places, to conclude with a prayer. And we'll take it from there. Swamiji, you're on. Thank you.
Hindus do not have any compulsion to go to a house of worship, but still, the house of worship is called mandir, especially in North India. It is called mandir. So mandirs are there in Hinduism, but it did not exist in ancient time, because in ancient time there are Vedic sacrifices, and they used to have altars which is outside the house, etc. Anyhow, but Hindus have built these temples when Emperor Ashoka put restrictions on these Vedic sacrifices. So Hindus then took the cue from the Tamil land, this puja idea. So this puja, which is itself a Tamil word, has come into, in Sanskrit, and for the last 19 centuries, at least, Hindus have been building mandirs, and magnificent mandirs are there, especially in South India. North India also has there, the mandirs. Now, the idea of these temples, though Hindus do not say that mandir is necessary for your worshipping, still mandirs are there because there is an idea in Hinduism that things and our thoughts they interact. So our thoughts, if they're in a place, many holy people, they are having holy thoughts. So the walls, the structures there, they're imbibed with some energy, which is very true. Especially you find it in places where great saints lived. You see, sometimes you hear them, their voice. They are no more here physically on earth, but when you enter there, you hear their voices even. You see, it has happened even in USA, I know. So this is called in Vedanta the Tanmatra. So this Tanmatra, the subtle things going into the, you see, that is the main idea of the temple. So an ordinary person whose mind is not elevated to a higher level, they can take easy advantage of this. Going to a place of worship, so the mind will be elevated. That is the main idea of the temples. And then this, you see, this COVID thing, they have put certain restrictions. So because of the lockdown in India, total lockdown in many places, so the temples were emptied, and that for a long time. Since 2 months, you see, most temples are, you see, empty. So that has put a financial strain on the temple management. That is true. You see, fortunately, it will be over soon, and you see, so that is one thing. And the temples, they have big temples, they have huge staff also. You see, there are temples like the shrine at Tirupati. Even during the month of March, when certain restrictions were in place due to this COVID, at least 70,000 people daily used to visit that Tirupati shrine. So the huge amount of sanitation, the distancing, you see, that has to be maintained. And you need extra staff. You see. So that is the thing which is COVID has done to, for example, I was talking yesterday with Belur Math authorities in India, which is our headquarters. They oversee the work in throughout the world of the Ramakrishna order. So they were saying that they are under financial strain because of this, and but very soon it will be over because people will be allowed, but with distancing. See, that is the situation, see, in the Hindu. But Hindu, as I have said, do not have the compulsion for his own spiritual practice of going to it, because Hindus, they believe that it is very personal, this religion. So you can sit any place and have your mantra or your holy words repeat again and again, which is called japa, or you simply meditate. You see, it can be done anywhere. So you need not go to a place, you see. So that is the another thing. So for very spiritually elevated people, this closing up temple is not a problem at all. That I should say. Now when these temples are reopening, so what will happen then? First of all, devotees, there will be lesser devotees because of the distancing. You cannot have big throngs, you see. That is another one thing. And then is the question of the, see, many temples, they are having things online. You can see, you see the rituals going on, the mantras being chanted, and the various jests being made by the priests, etc. Everything can be seen online. At least the big institutions are doing that. So throughout the world, these are your telecast. So there will be actually, though devotees are less in the temple, actual participation is huge. That is one thing. And many temples are thinking of dispatching the consecrated food postally. So that would bring in some revenue to the temples and also to the postal department. Yes, that is certain. And to have some revenue, some temples or mandirs are thinking of having those devotees who do not have time to queue up, still they want to go in, you pay more and go. You see, if you are able to do it. So bypassing long queues. But the saddest thing is that you cannot go inside the temple and sit there for a stretch of time to meditate, to you see, have an inner absorption. That is not possible. They will drive you out because you say it is question of distancing and the space. So these things are there.
Thank you, Swamiji, for that overview and for giving us a sense of the balance of spiritual and economical. It's actually quite interesting listening from the outside to what extent this whole mix of spiritual and sociological and economical comes together, and the creative solutions, video camera and postal services all coming together. This is something that we're not going to hear on the Jewish side, I can assure you. So, Swamiji, maybe you lead us now in a moment of a prayer or contemplation.
Okay, so I shall you see, chant something. This is it is addressed to, these mantras are addressed to God conceived as mother, the benevolent mother. So who is there in all difficulties of the children. Anathasya deenasya trishnaturasya vayartasya vitasya baddhasya yantoh Tameka gatir devi nistarakatri namaste jagattarini trahi durge. So it is saying that the human animal who is orphaned, who is poor, who is thirsty, who is hungry, who is intimidated, for such a person, you are the only way out. So let us help in these situations. Aranye rane darunashattu madhye anale sagare prantare rajagrehe tameka gatir devi nistar hetu namaste jagattarini trahi durge. In a forest, in a battlefield, and when you are in the midst of fierce enemies, in the fire, in the ocean, in large meadows, and when you are when you are confronted with the frowning of the king, in such situations you are the way out. You see, you can help us. Please protect us. Apare mahadustare antanta ghore vipad sagare majjatang deha bhajam tameka gatir devi nistara nauka tamaste jagattarini trahi durge. This situation of the world is like a great ocean, shoreless, and we are being drowned there. So you are the way out, you are the boat of help. So we pray to you, please protect us. So these are the lines, these are the mantras, you see. So, and actually, you see, we know, especially because our order is nascent order, and Sarada Devi, who was both a wife and a nun, because the marriage was never consumed. So she lived long, up to 1920. So in these 33 years, so many people, you see, because Ramakrishna became known, Swami Vivekananda became very famous, so the attention turned towards Sarada Devi, and they used to come to her for help in difficult situations. Actually, they got these helps. Diseased people, people who have lost their jobs, people who are in a terrible suffering, you see, all these people. You see, so we know that such a thing, and such a thing has happened even recently in Canada. One of a family is known to me, you see, Sarada Devi appeared before her physically, you see, in the recent past. You see. So this is when you pray to God, something happens. God really helps. Whether you see God or not, that is not the question. God can hear the sound of the anklets of the ants, even as as the Persian or Sufis say.
Thank you, Swamiji. I think that's such an important reminder of faith. So maybe we take a moment to go on the heels of that and think of all the people in the world right now who need that refuge, all those people who need the refuge, who need that support, both those who are now jobless as a consequence of global economical shifts, those who need healing, those who have to deal with various human circumstances, the recognition that God, conceived as mother, father, or in any other way, is the refuge. Let's take a moment and think of all those people and send them our prayers. Let's move on to Maria Reis Habito. Maria, who is ordained Zen teacher, scholar of Buddhism, member of Elijah. Maria, we look forward to hearing your perspective.
Thank you, Alon. And hello again to everyone. First of all, I would like to convey all of you warmest greetings from Dharma Master Shindao, who I'm representing on the board. And I informed them about our getting together, our prayer meeting this morning. So he sends warmest regards. Then I want to thank Swamiji for really already outlining the foundations on which the houses of worship in Buddhism are also based. And I want to speak about those a little bit more, just to understand what the need is for a house of worship and what it represents. So historically speaking, after the death of the historical Buddha Gautama, stupas were little towers, stupas, were erected at 4 places that were connected to his life. His birthplace, his enlightenment place, the first sermon, and the place where the Buddha died and reached parinirvana. And so those stupas contain relics of the Buddha. And as the Swamiji told us, when you are close to a place like that, your mind, your spirit is elevated because these places mediate or radiate the spiritual presence and the energy of the Buddha. And so it can directly connect us with that mind of enlightenment of the Buddha. And so one good example for this, for example, is the Schwedagon Pagoda in Myanmar, in Yangon. It's dated from the 7th to the 9th century. And it's a very holy place for the believers because it contains 3 hairs of the Buddha. And that is a vast temple complex with a famous golden stupa in the middle, and where pilgrims flock to from all over the world. The local people and pilgrims, they come basically to circumambulate the stupa, then to venerate the Buddhas and the saints, to pray, to meditate, to make offerings, to take refuge, meaning the ceremony to become an official Buddhist, or to receive teachings, or what is very important, to generate merit. So your donations of flowers, of incense, of food to the monks and the nuns and so on. Our own organization has a center near that pagoda. And when we have meetings in Myanmar once a year, usually all the people in the Interfaith conference go to the pagoda and offer some flowers and some especially candles. And it's very, very moving to see thousands of candles lighted around this golden stupa, and it's a transformative moment. It's also important to know that in Buddhism, the stupa or the temple area represents the entire universe. So the tall building in the middle, for example, represents Mount Meru, this cosmic mountain. But perhaps even more importantly, it represents the universe from the point of view of enlightenment. So in the Mahayana tradition, it says that when you come to the temple, you already come to the pure land, to that realm of the enlightenment that you long to attain. And now another famous example for such a place of worship is, of course, Borobudur in Indonesia. And that is the world's largest temple. It is a stupa on 3 levels, which represents the phenomenal world of form, as the Buddhists say, the spiritual world of no form, and then the world of enlightenment. This huge stupa has 2,672, I looked that up, relief panels and 504 Buddha statues. And all of these things also mediate the physical and spiritual journey that the pilgrims take from the bottom to the top. And they wind around these 3 layers coming from the ordinary life up to the world of enlightenment. And that stupa is based on a Buddhist scripture, which is called the Avatamsaka Sutra, which describes the pilgrimage of a young boy called Sudana, who is reaching from his own home on his spiritual journey to the world of the Buddhas, the world of the Enlightenment. And the pilgrims, of course, hope to achieve that same spiritual experience, elevating of mind. So last month, on May 7, the Buddhists throughout the world celebrated the birth, the enlightenment, and passing into nirvana of the Buddha. And usually there would be millions coming to Borobudur for this occasion, but it was not so this year. So this year they held a celebration via social media. And of course it was very different, but there was a teacher, a monk, who gave Dharma talks and meditation instructions. So there was time to follow a meditation online. And then interestingly, for the younger people or whoever wanted to, there was even an exercise in doing a puzzle so that you could learn how to develop mindfulness. But of course, all of this did not allow you to do that physical pilgrimage from the bottom to the top. And so another very important function of the houses of worship, especially in the Mahayana tradition, so the Buddhism that's practiced in China and Japan mainly, are ceremonies to help the deceased, the dead persons, pass into the other world. And these ceremonies are usually held during the 7th lunar month, so it coincides with July or August. And those ceremonies include the construction of very elaborate altars, offering of food, flowers, incense, money, and so on. Sometimes these ceremonies, because there can be tens of thousands of people who attend these, sometimes when the temple is not large enough, and that's often the case, they are held in sports stadiums. So that's a possibility to replace the temple, but still all these altars need to be constructed. So the question is then, can Buddhists live without houses of worship? And of course, as long as they have the sutras and the scriptures, that's possible. So the scriptures are venerated as the words of the Buddha. And traditionally, they are very beautifully illustrated. And of course, you can read, or what's even more important, recite the scripture outside of the temple and be connected to the Buddhas and the world of enlightenment in that way. And as the Swamiji already said, the same is true with meditation. You can really do that wherever you are. The Japanese Zente temples, they are known for the beauty of their elegant architectural structures and the beauty of their gardens. And that reflects the understanding in this Asian form of Buddhism, that absolute reality, that the world of enlightenment is reflected in the world of phenomena in this world, just like the moon, which is reflected in the water. That's the commonly used image. So the sight of a flower or of an oak tree, the sound of a frog jumping into a pond, or a pebble hitting a bamboo stalk. All these are examples from Zen texts. They can cut through our usual way of separating between subject and object, between the I, me, mine here, as opposed to everything else out there, and then open up that oneness to us. And there is a famous text by Zen Master Hakuin, who lived in the 17th century, which is very commonly recited during meditation, Zen meditation retreats. It says, "This very earth where we stand is the pure lotus land, and this very body is the body of Buddha." So the meditation centers and temples, as Swamiji has already mentioned, have now also resorted to offer meditation instructions and even retreats via Zoom. Here in Dallas, we do it at the Maria Kandon Zen Center, and typically there are more people that link in through Zoom than would come in any given evening during the week, simply because the students come from all over the US, some even from Europe, and they can now link in via Zoom. So people experience that as something where the connection is even deeper than before. Also in Taiwan, Dharma Master Shindao, for the first time, which he never did before, has set up a program of offering Dharma talks and guided meditation to his students. And as I said, this provides us with new connections and opportunities. As Swamiji had already mentioned, meditation centers and temples, of course, are struggling with the financial impact of not having had these events for the last 3 months. But I know that in Taiwan and in Japan, there are no longer restrictions, and it remains to be seen if they really will allow to hold these ceremonies for the ancestors in July and August in the temples, or if they all have to resort to, let's say, sports stadiums so that they can space people out more. I don't know that yet, but it's a possibility. But I think the point I want to mention is that while Zoom allows us to be together like we are this morning now, it's the physicality and the beauty of the holy place that, of course, can never be connected or can never be replaced by a computer or the internet. And that is a sacrifice. But then again, even us would not be here together this morning if this sacrifice did not open up other possibilities to us. And it remains to be seen if the meditation centers, once they are fully be opened again, here in the US, that's not the case. Everything is still closed, also the meditation centers. If that new medium of connecting via Zoom, I don't think that it will completely disappear. It's probably one of the new ways in which people will be connecting and also holding retreats in the future. Our own center is going to have one this weekend here in Dallas. For the short prayer, I would just like to recite a mantra and let you know, I was still in Taiwan in our monastery in March on a retreat, and that's when the outbreak of the corona crisis was still very, very acute. And so the nuns in our monastery recited mantras for 1 hour every night. And the understanding of the mantra is that this spiritual energy will exactly hit that area that is disturbed. So illness is considered as a disturbance, and the transformative energy of the mantra, yes, can transform the illness and make it go away. That's the understanding behind it. And it's a very short mantra. It's the mantra, the nuns did recite a much longer mantra like the Swamiji, but for us in the West, Master Shindao says, recite the mantra of the great compassionate heart. And it goes Om Mani Peme Hum. So Mani, or I should say Peme, is that heart that opens like a lotus. oh, you jewel in the lotus. So our heart is the lotus, and the jewel is the compassion and the enlightenment that comes from realizing that the absolute world is manifested in each and every one of us. And this is what the mantra, no matter whether we are suffering, whether we are dying, whether we are hungry, the power of the mantra is helping us to be sustained in all of these experiences in life. And it goes simply like that. Om Mani Padme Hum Shi. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum Shi. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum Shi. Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you.
Let us stay together for a moment in that space of opening the heart, the manifestation of the heart for expanding and reaching out for all the people we think and pray for. Thank you, Maria, for such a well-rounded, articulate, focused, and edifying presentation. Very grateful to you for that. And we move to, I suppose on a certain level, our host for this evening and longtime partner, Rabbi David Rosen, who is going to give us a Jewish perspective on today's subject of discussion.
Thank you very much, Alon. Alon sent the speakers some pointers, some questions to prepare our comments. And the first one was the question of why do houses of prayer matter? And Amarananda ji and Maria have both directly and indirectly addressed this. Allow me to resonate, but with utilizing a biblical text, specifically from the first book of Kings, chapter 8, verses 27 to 43. But verse 27 in particular, if like, opens up with the dilemma, with the question, which is essentially, why is a place of prayer or a specific religious edifice necessary at all? After all, God, the transcendent reality, the power behind and in the cosmos, is everywhere. Or as the Kabbalistic tradition puts it, there is no place devoid of his presence. And if therefore God can be encountered everywhere, why do you need a particular edifice at all? And that is therefore the question already posed at that first verse, and the rest of the dedicatory prayer, Solomon's dedicatory prayer at the establishment of the temple, goes towards addressing this particular question. If we look at how he sees this edifice functioning within the life of the community, we can see the needs and the aspects of its, if you like, life that it provides for. So first and foremost, we have the idea of setting a place aside for devotion, for prayer, for offerings, for worship. It's interesting that the word dedication itself, which I've used in terms of Solomon's prayer, it comes from the Latin root to meaning to point out. And indeed the Hebrew word for dedication, Chanukah, which of course we know in terms of many people know in terms of the Hanukkah festival, the rededication of the temple, has the root chanach, lachnoch, which is to educate, or in other words, to direct us. And therefore, part of the purpose of having an institution, a structure, is both to point out at something, in other words, to emphasize the reality of the transcendent, as well as to direct us in a particular fashion. If you like, that's something that emerged very much within tradition later on within the synagogue as an educational institution. But one of the most powerful aspects of Solomon's dedicatory prayer is his implicit focus on the nature of community. The temple serves as a place that brings the people together. And of course, that was its function in ancient Israel, not only in terms of the individual's expression, but in terms of the solidification, the solidarity of the community, bringing the community together, deepening their sense of commonality, of their shared identity, of their shared destiny. Solomon also refers to the temple as a place of thanksgiving. This highlights our appreciation not to take things for granted. This, of course, is something we should do all the time, and Judaism places emphasis upon the idea of blessing, which, if you like, is a parallel to the idea of mindfulness, never to take anything for granted. But when you have a specific place and a specific time and specific rituals, that enables you to focus much more on the sense of awareness, of appreciation, and of thanksgiving. The temple is referred to as a place to gather in times of distress. In other words, to provide reassurance. And that's important too, because it's fine to be able to get that communication individually, but where you're at a place, again, especially with a sense of communal solidarity, that provides far greater reassurance. He refers to the place as what I already mentioned, a place where we reflect upon the right path. One of the interpretations of the Hebrew word to pray, palel, sees it as coming from the root pilel, judgment, and therefore means a form of self-analysis, self-reflection, checking that you really are, have the right priorities and are living for the right things. And to have a place with times set aside provides for that opportunity for reflection. Related to this also is another aspect that the dedicatory prayer refers to, and that is seeking forgiveness. Again, this is something which we can do everywhere, and every observant Jew before going to bed at night recites a little prayer asking forgiveness, forgiving anyone who may have offended him during the course of the day. And therefore forgiveness is an integral part also of our liturgy. But to be able to have a place where there is the opportunity to specifically address that forgiveness has a power in itself. The dedicatory prayer also emphasizes the fact that this is not only a place for Israelites, but also for the stranger. In other words, it's a place to emphasize the universal message of religion and to highlight that and to perhaps overcome the problematic aspects of particularity, despite the very positive aspects that can contribute to the life of the individual and community. And finally, it's a place to glorify and magnify his name. In other words, the edifice testifies to something. It's a testament. And as physical beings, we need that physical testament. So these are all different aspects of the importance of having a structure. When the temple was destroyed, many Jews thought that was the end of the story, already with the first temple, especially after the second temple. The sages, our sages of the Talmud, the Mishnaic period, reassured the community that there were miniature sanctuaries which would sustain all these different aspects. One of them, and perhaps the most important of all, is the home in which so much of Jewish ritual takes place. But the other is the synagogue, and the synagogue specifically referred to as a mikdash ma'at, a miniature sanctuary providing for these different needs. An interesting question that you have, within Judaism is very important that, as Alon said, I'm giving a Jewish perspective, because you can never really talk of the Jewish perspective on almost anything within Judaism, because we have a great heritage of variety of opinions and of approaches, and to a large degree conformity has had much more to do with praxis than it has to do with doctrine. But there's always been a debate with regards to sites whether sanctity is something intrinsic or extrinsic. There have been references that have been made, especially by Swami to the idea of a place reflecting some kind of intrinsic power in and of itself. And there certainly would have been those within Jewish tradition that would have resonated that, in particular regarding the temple, which is often portrayed as being, if you like, the axis mundi, the center of sanctity in the world, which emanates out to the rest of the world and directly under the celestial heavenly throne, a kind of an axis of spiritual power that connects heaven and earth at that particular point. But for others, it's more the question of association, the function that the place provides, that gives it that aspect of sanctity that it acquires, but it acquires as a result of the human engagement with it. The question that Alon posed to us is, what is the cost of having closed synagogues, the potential benefits, and when returning, what lessons can we learn from this? Well, obviously, closing synagogues, the synagogue, as I mentioned before, serves a very important communal function, and this aspect also has liturgical dimensions to it. So within Jewish tradition, there are certain prayers that cannot be recited other than in a quorum. And it's considered meritorious to pray in a quorum, even though you can pray all the 3 daily prayers as an individual without a quorum. But there are certain specific liturgical aspects that require a quorum, not least of all the reading from scripture from the Torah scroll, another aspect. The absence of synagogues or of places of communal worship, to be more precise, has been a problem in terms of being able to discharge these aspects of devotion and of dedication, of prayer and of service that the observant Jew wishes to do so. So, as already indicated by my colleagues, we have found creative ways to respond to that. And as you go through the streets of Jerusalem, you can hear voices of prayer at the certain times of prayer coming from apartment courtyards, from little parks, where people have assembled together as quorums in order to be able to discharge this aspect. So when people have not been able, however, to do these creative things or to take the advantage of technology, it certainly has been a source of distress for many, a sense of loss of community for those for whom prayer serves as that important communal, if you like, glue and reinforcement. But it's also had some very positive aspects. There have always been within Jewish tradition those that have loved to pray amidst nature. There have been specific Hasidic movements which have preferred to worship out in the forests and in the fields rather than any enclosed structure. And that's something really wonderful because, as indicated, the main purpose of these structures is to point at a reality beyond the structure. That is the divine presence throughout the world and above all manifest in the natural world, in the cosmos, in the creation. And to be able to pray with that sense of, to use now the metaphor from Psalms and from the Hasidic masters, in which the trees and the mountains and the streams are celebrating God's blessings and God's reality and his gifts together with you, is a wonderful gift. So there are many very positive aspects that come out of being able to worship in nature, as many of us have been doing at this particular time. Obviously, the technological aspect has been one of the major dimensions of how we have coped with this pandemic, as has already been mentioned. Certainly, those technological tools are going to remain with us, and in certain respects, even intrude on the liturgical life. I say intrude, it's not really fair, because in many respects, they are assisting liturgical life, but they are also intruding. There are areas, especially of prayer, and certainly with regards to aspects of religious observance like the Sabbath, where, or we had the Passover during the height of COVID-19, where families and communities could not come together for the Passover meal. So technological tools were used in different ways. Once you get into that, it can be a slippery slope, and the degree to which technology can intrude upon the holy space, the quiet space, the sacred space. And this is a challenge which I would say religious leadership is going to have to seriously address, the erosion of discipline. Discipline is a really important aspect of religious devotion within the different traditions, especially within our own tradition, and this is going to remain a challenge. I would like to conclude simply with referring to interfaith activity. The silver lining of this terrible cloud, for me, has certainly been the degree of interreligious interaction. Normally, I have to wait for a conference and to travel, and it can be long distances and the hassle until you come together. And as Maria said, there's nothing like coming not just face to face, but breath to breath. There's something enormously powerful and wonderful in the direct human contact. But this is a marvelous second best of being able to bring together people through this Zoom technology and other social communications tools that are available. And it has, for me, I don't think I've ever been in any period in my life where I've had as much interfaith interaction through prayer meetings, through conferences, through colloquia of various kinds. And it's been actually a great blessing. And I think it has also highlighted the commonalities and enabled us to respect the differences. It has highlighted shared values. It has highlighted our interdependence, the degree to which we can no longer in any way presume, even if we would want to live in isolation of one another. This pandemic has really reinforced our awareness of our interconnectedness, our interdependency, and our responsibility for one another. And it's going to be a big challenge, I would say, for the religious communities and religious leadership to sustain that awareness and not allow us to backslide into insularity and into any kind of self-complacency. Thank you.
David, thank you. Thank you for that. I think you're about to transition to some other part of your home, and that'll give me a chance to say something to all of you, and that is that David's presentation now could have been lifted out of a summary that I would have made for the Coronaspection project that we will be launching officially on Monday, where the issue of unity, interfaith relations, and facing crisis and changes are some of the issues that are being profiled intensely by the 40 participants. And our Coronaspection series is part of that larger project, adding further voices to it, all of which really are pointing in a very similar direction. And therefore, I'd like to amplify what David said. All of you are here because you're in one way or another on Elijah mailings. So look out already tomorrow for the launch on Tablet Magazine, and then Monday we have the big launch with release of the trailer for the project and the entire project. And we hope you will benefit, and more than anything, we hope that you will also share with others so others can benefit from the enormous wisdom and not inconsequential amount of work that went into it. I don't know if we're ready yet for the prayer part. Peta, are we ready on your end?
Yeah, we're ready.
Wonderful. So we've been talking about sacred space, and as many of you know, we feel very privileged to be in the holy city of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim al-Quds. And as you can see, together we are Christians, Muslims, and Jews together praying side by side as we do with praying together in Jerusalem. And we're going to hear a short... We have a dog as well. I don't understand dogging. But we're going to hear a short prayer from each of the traditions. We're going to start with Sheikh Jamal al-Din giving a brief Muslim prayer.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. I am Sheikh Jamal al-Din from Jerusalem, from the city of peace. I am from Mount of Olives, Mount of Peace. Come to you to say Assalamu alaikum. God bless you. We pray for peace every day. I love you, everyone. And my friend, all together, brother and sister, we love you. I want to pray to God to help us for peace. The first of Surah Quran, Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Thank you, all of you, very much.
Thank you.
My colleague and dear friend, Father Russ McDougall from Tantur, will introduce a Christian prayer.
This is the prayer that concludes the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, which is the usual way that Eastern Orthodox churches celebrate the Eucharist. O Lord, who bless those who bless you and sanctify those who put their trust in you, save your people and bless your inheritance. Protect the whole body of your church. Sanctify those who love the beauty of your house. Glorify them in return by your divine power, and forsake us not who have set our hope in you. Grant peace to your world, to your churches, to communities of faith in every place, to religious and civic leaders, and to all your people. For every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from you, the Father of lights. To you we give glory, thanksgiving, and worship, now and forever, unto endless ages. Amen.
And Rabbi David Rosen.
I am going to recite Psalm 91. Psalm 91 has a very central place in Jewish liturgy, as so many of the Psalms do. It is particularly employed in times of distress and of difficulty. And most appropriately, this psalm refers to the dangers of plague and of pestilence. And that seems to be so appropriate to the challenge that we are facing at this particular time. Above all, it is an acknowledgement of divine majesty and protection and guidance that we call upon to be able to be bestowed upon us all. I will start off in Hebrew and then continue in English. יושב בסתר עליון בצל שדי יתלונן. אומר לאדוני מחסי ומצודתי אלוהי אפתח בו. כי הוא יצילך מפח יכוש, מדבר חוות, בעברתו יסך לך ותחת כנפיו תחסה, צינה וסוחרה עמיתו. לא תירא מפחד לילה, מחץ יעוף יומם, מדבר באופל יהלוך, מכתב ישוב צהרי. כי אתה אדוני מחסי, עליון שמת מעונך. He that dwells in the shelter of the Most High abides under the shade of the Almighty. I say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he shall deliver you from the trapper's snare and from the destructive plague. He shall cover you with his protection, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be a shield and a buckler. You shall not be afraid of terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, of the pestilence that stalls in darkness, nor of the plague that ravages at noon. 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, it shall not come near to you. For you, O Lord, are my refuge. You have made the Most High your dwelling place. No evil shall befall you, neither shall any disease come near to your tent.
For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you on their hands, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You shall tread over the panther and the adder, over the lion and the serpent shall you trample, because he has set his love upon me. Therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he knows my name. When he calls upon me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With length of days will I satisfy him, and I will let him see my salvation. Amen.
I'd just like to acknowledge the presence here also of Sheikh Ibrahim, my friend Reis, and my dear friend Hala Buhari, who've joined us as well, so that we can pray side by side. We always finish our praying together in Yerushalayim, praying together in Jerusalem, with silence. And the silence has two purposes that we can use them in different levels or different balances. The first is gratitude, to just be grateful for the wonderful opportunities we have of being together among friends and for praying together. So gratitude is one thing, but the other is also the appeal to the Almighty that He take care of those who are in need, and our prayers for those who are not as fortunate as ourselves. So we will spend a moment together, you on the other end of the Zoom camera, and those of us here in Yerushalayim will spend just a moment in silence together, in both gratitude for what we have and in the appeal for those who are in need and don't have what we have. So let's have a moment of silence together. I don't know how much you could hear, but we have heard prayers and bells, and we really feel that we're surrounded by sanctity here in Jerusalem. And we'll hear them soon. I want to thank you for joining us in silence. Alon, it's back to you if you'd like to open for discussion, but it's shalom and salam from here in Yerushalayim.
Thank you, Peta.